Hi, Lars. Can you hear me?
Hello. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that is great. That is great. Well, it's now 8 o'clock
8:15.
JCI time somewhere. At least that's a good thing about the world. It's always 8 o'clock somewhere, and it is 8 o'clock now. And thank you very much for joining me, SG Arrey. It's wonderful that you can be here tonight, and I know that we have been. A lot of people have been waiting to hear what you have to say about changing reality of membership organizations worldwide. Arrey is joining us from Kagoshima, Japan, where he's getting ready for the JCI Aspect Conference. So I'm really excited that you're here, Arrey, and I know that the members are looking very much forward to hearing from you. So how is Japan?
Japan is great. Have a great view. It's 4 a.m. here in Japan. I can see the city lights. And we feel the volcanic ash from the Sakurajima mountain, but it's great. We're ready to go. 6,000 delegates expected here this week.
That is wonderful. Well, Arrey, the JCI Growth Grading Program is something started in Europe where we wanted to help national board members get some inputs on how they could grow the organization. And this is our sixth session. We've had JCI past president Don with us. We've had JCI vice president with us. We've had JCI Syria in the last webinar talking about how they grow, even though the challenges there are really immense. But Arrey, you're the Secretary General of JCI, but you're not born to be that. So where do you come from? What's your story?
Well, I'm originally from Cameroon, in between Central and West Africa. I start up my background professionally is I'm a lawyer. I used to practice law in Cameroon, and in my spare time was a member of JCI Cameroon, and started out as a founder member of my local organization many years ago. Really got involved in the organization because I saw the value that it brought to my life, my community, my country, and I felt that it was something that every young person should have the opportunity to belong to, and so I got very involved in the organization nationally, working at the grassroots level to really bring these opportunities to young people in many cities around my country, and so also got involved internationally, doing some work in neighboring countries in Africa, and had the opportunity to give up my legal practice to go work at JCI World Headquarters, and since then it's all been almost like a mission to try to engage and mobilize as many young people to be part of this movement or organization around the world. That essentially is my background. I'm really passionate about engaging with people, engaging particularly young people with this organization, with our mission. So that's really who I am. Hello, Lars. Hello. Lars. Oh. Okay. I can't hear Lars, but I'm hoping that you all can hear me.
We just lost you.
There. Can you?
Well, great that you're here, Arrey.
Yes, we're back. We're back on track.
We're great. So, Arrey, let's dive into the topic of tonight. We're talking about the changing reality of membership organizations, and while we were waiting for you, I was talking about the 30 years that I've been part of this, or 25 years that I've been part of this organization, and also the changes that we've seen over that time. What are the trends that you're seeing right now in the changing reality of membership organizations?
Okay. Well, one thing I would like our readers, maybe they can take a moment to look at, is a book written by a lady called Sarah Sladek. Sarah Sladek, I'm going to put this out, and the title of the book is called "The End of Membership as We Know It." And one of the, I started out many years ago when I joined JCI. Working for JCI was in 2002, so you can look at it from 2002 right up to 2018. And what I found out is that within JCI and outside JCI, in many membership organizations, I belong to the St. Louis Association of Association Executives. I belong to the United States Association of Association Executives. I belong to all of these groups of membership organizations. I've had meetings with Rotary and Lions and Kiwanis. And what I find out in all of these conversations is that they keep talking about membership, the challenges with recruitment and retention. Now, what I've found out in my own experience, maybe it's time to put this in a book, is that organizations are formed not because they have a desire to get membership. That's not the reason why organizations are created. Organizations are created because they have a purpose, because they have a mission. There's a reason why they are created. And then they develop members as a result of their operational aspect. That's how they survive. That's how they engage people. That's their method of outreach. So it is not the membership that defines the organization. It is actually the purpose of the organization that says, this is how we're going to be structured through membership. But as any organization like ours that's 100 years old or more than 50 years old, the fact that you've developed the membership suddenly becomes the reason why you exist. So the focus is always on trying to get the membership, and that begins to define who you are. And so when you're growing, you seem to be doing well. When you're losing members, you seem not to be doing well. But in the end, if you ask yourself the question, why do you exist? Why do you have these members? That should tell you, that should be your only measurement of whether you're doing well or not. Now, in the context of the world that we live in today, there are three shifts that we need to understand from an organizational perspective. The one is generational shifts, two is social changes, and three is obviously technological changes that are taking place in the world. And being conscious of those three changes, we can be able to understand. So I will use the context of JCI. JCI as an organization was started out in the United States after the First World War. What were the changes that were taking place in the world? What was the situation of the time in the United States? And many young people had come back from war, right? In those days, war didn't used to be like it is for today, where you just strike and get out. No, people used to get on ships and travel for months and years to get there. And in those years, there was no schooling, no improvement in skills and all of that. So when they came back from war, there was a need for them to acquire those skills. And so the organization was created to fulfill that need. And the word need is really important for us to highlight. And obviously expanded after the Second World War, because obviously there were conversations about diversity, about thinking beyond borders. So they're trying to get together. And so the organization has evolved over a period of time. So we have to look at the organization in the context of the world today, where we are living in a very fast-paced world. Everything needs to be answered within a short period of time. We are using technology now to communicate across 4 a.m. in Japan, PM in Europe and other parts of the world were having this engagement. Everything seems to be going really, really, really fast. Now, here's the thing. It's the same with membership organizations, that the notion or the tradition of having members as they used to be, where they would take 1 hour off during the week or one evening off during the week, they'll leave their families, they'll leave everything and spend time in a club or in a meeting or in a gathering. Now that really is not trending anymore, because there are lots of other things that are happening around, especially young people. There is technology. We have the phones. We have cable television. We have Netflix. We have all of those things that we're competing with. And it used to be, if you you must have done this so many times. I've seen you ask this question to many audiences. When you ask people, how many of you joined JCI? How did you join JCI? And the answer is usually peer to peer, one person telling another person. Well, in the reality of the world that we live in, with the pace at which the world is going, it can no longer be one person inviting one person to join the organization, because then you would not catch up with the speed at which things are evolving. Everything has to be accelerated. In fact, I had a conversation with somebody who is in the technology business, and they said you have to take peer-to-peer to mean 100 to 1,000, or to mean 1,000 to 10,000. So you need to be engaging. You have to multiply your engagement or accelerate your engagement, where you're reaching 1,000 people to get to an audience of 10,000 people at the pace that you're doing on almost a daily basis. What does all of this mean, just to wrap this up, is that the future of membership organizations is largely going to depend not on how you engage members or how you engage people to join your organization, but it's going to depend largely on how you are relevant to the people that you want to engage. So, one, commitment to purpose. I'm going to add these three things. Commitment to purpose. What is your mission? How relevant is your mission to your audience? How can you continue to be relevant? There are two kinds of organizations in the world. One, those that are cost-driven, and two, those that are mission-driven. Cost-driven organizations are, we want to cure headache. So we get together, we lobby for laws and funding and research, and we cure headache. Mission-driven organizations are those like JCI that are mission-driven, meaning we will continue to provide development opportunities for young people, no matter how the world changes. So that's one. We must be relevant, commitment to purpose. Two, commitment to data. We can only be relevant to young people if we understand young people, if we understand who our audience is, and we take action to engage that audience in the way that they need to be engaged. And finally, commitment to action. How are we, beyond just engaging them superficially, beyond just being relevant to them, how are we activating them? How are we actually making the Arrey Obenson, who is sitting behind this screen, move from just sitting behind the screen to actually getting into action, to actually doing something about where they are, about what they believe in, what they want to improve, how they want to change, transform themselves. So these are things that we in the sphere of membership organizations have been talking about. Life, essentially, if we come down to JCI, life is a school where experience is the schoolmaster. What JCI as an organization, our local and national organizations, what we all must be thinking is not just finding young people to join our organization. It's finding young people who understand that they need to be empowered to create positive change. Our role as an organization must be constantly thinking about what can we provide as an opportunity that would empower young people to create positive change. The outcome must always be about positive change. Why should young people be empowered? Because we want to create positive change. And so, in the context of it, you can get opportunities to develop yourself everywhere nowadays. But what you cannot get is the experience of being empowered to get into action. And I just had a conversation with a 23-year-old that is developing something called My Effects. And My Effects is intended to measure the impact of people, of individuals, not just of organizations, of individuals. Because the future of the world is largely not going to depend on what skill you have, what language you speak, or where you come from. But it's really going to depend on what have you done? What are you capable of doing? What is your impact? From an organizational perspective, when I spoke about our commitment to purpose and how you're committed to data, we are thinking that the future of this organization, local organizations, national organizations, has to be largely our purpose remains relevant. We understand what the future of young people will be, and we are going to that future with them by creating opportunities for them to take that future into their own hands through the kind of activities that we provide. In a long way of going around it is that these three things: commitment to purpose, commitment to data, understanding young people, and commitment to action is really going to define the future of membership.
Well, Arrey, I think this is very exciting, and I think it's and I totally agree with you that these are the three things that we need to do. How do we handle this as an international organization when the needs are different of people, different places? For instance, I was just following. I follow, of course, JCI on Twitter, and when I see what we communicate, how do we make sure that we do not disturb the message on a local level instead of enhancing the message? Because if you look at, I was just following the JCI tweet, as I said, and if we look at that, there are many things that are relevant in some areas and that are absolutely not relevant in others. And they seemed like all world problems, and how does that relate to my city? If you were looking at people who wants to get empowered, to have development opportunities that can empower them so that they can make positive change wherever they live. Is this something that you're talking about and considering in JCI? Is how is our communication affecting local chapters in different realities?
Yes, Lars, thanks for that. That's a great question. The reality of an international organization like ours, there's bound to be this difference in perspective. So I would like to address this in two ways. The first one is that from an organizational perspective, we realized this a long time ago, and it is okay for the international organization to be thinking ahead of its membership, because if we are thinking at the same pace as a membership, then we're not moving forward as an organization. We're not going to be ready for the future. As an organization, we think about the organization. So we think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, is this organization going to survive for that future? We study a lot the trends of young people in every part of the world, and we try to make sure that we're predicting those trends before they happen. And so it is okay for us to be sometimes ahead in that. With reference to, and so in that context, we even did what I would say decentralize the mission of the organization. And this, maybe we have not been effectively communicating this, but we decentralized the mission of the organization in the context that we developed something called the Active Citizen Framework. Organizations that are going to survive in the world are not going to survive because of their membership. They're going to survive because they have a module, a business module that can be repeated everywhere in the world. And we developed something like that because that was foreseeing what the future would be. We developed something called the Active Citizen Framework, which in essence, any organization that takes that framework and tries to deploy it locally in their community can actually become relevant in that community, because they will be. What we did is we studied the 100 most successful organizations in the world. You can take those 100 organizations and you find out why they have been successful. There are certain ingredients that they have. Those ingredients are, one, they're relevant to their community. So they're doing something that is relevant to their community, which means that the community owns them. There's a reason why they continue to have people coming to the organization, because they are recognized for something that they do. That they don't only work within the context of the organization. So it's not 25 people talking to themselves all the time. They're engaging people outside the community. They're talking to experts. They're talking to business leaders. They're talking to government leaders. They're constantly working with this. Thirdly, they're rigidly committed to improving, to feedback. So when they do things, they're making sure that they're giving feedback to their members, to their stakeholders, and all of that. All of that is defined in the Active Citizen Framework, which we rolled out essentially so that we do not tell JCI Limbe Cameroon what they do to be relevant. Now, in the context of the international organization, we have to position ourselves as a brand in the international community. Like, how do we become relevant to the world? I mean, we live in a world now, and we need to be able to understand what's going on in the world. Who would have thought that in the year 2015, it would be business leaders of the world that will be determining the development agenda of the world? It would be civil society leaders of the world, not-for-profit organizations, that will be determining the business agenda of the world. But when we studied this in 2013, we looked at reports from 16 intelligence agencies in the world, 131 pages, reviewed this, and it told us a few things. One, governments will become weaker. Citizens will become stronger. There will be a significant role that not-for-profit organizations, civil society organizations will play in development. And this is a universal trend that is happening, that is coming. And so what we try to do is position the organization to be ready for those trends. And so we look at global trends and we say, what is it that the world seems to have in common? And with that, we try to position our communications. And I understand and I feel that there's sometimes that disconnect between what you see and reality in our communities. But this is the same thing we said about Syria. We thought that Syria was a serious problem. But here we are sitting in a world today that Syria is really a melting pot that could explode the world or bring the world together. And so from an international organizational perspective, we know that. Finally, what are the trends of tomorrow's young people? What are the trends? What are we seeing? What would that generation that will come after the millennials, what are they thinking? How are they going to react? Are they seeing boundaries? Are they looking beyond their communities? Are they engaging people with the subject matters that we're talking about? And so we try to build an organization that is ready for that future and not necessarily for today. And sometimes there may seem to be that disconnect, but I think we must spend more time in engaging and educating our current members, and maybe we've not been very good at that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. One of the things Muhammad was asking about is what are the common challenges between national organizations? What do you see as the main challenges that we're experiencing? Let me just put a framework around it, because when you travel, as both you and I have done in JCI, we see a lot of national organizations growing to 100, 200, maybe 250, and then they stop growing. And we haven't really succeeding in growing national organizations to larger national organizations for the last many years. What do you think are the challenges that they are experiencing as well?
Um, this is yeah, Lars, you're very right with this because usually when a new local organization begins, there's usually a lot of excitement and people join the organization. So the challenge is not joining the organization, and this is the same with national organizations. They start, they grow, and then they get to a certain level, and then they stagnate there. Last, what I've learned over the period of time is that they grow from why they were started in the first place, why they became relevant in the first place, to why to basically what is it that they do. And that's usually the tipping point. That tipping point is that once you have, when you have 10, 15, 20 people, 25 in a local organization, you're all committed to the purpose of why you're coming together, right? But then it gets to that point where you begin to focus on how you keep these people. You begin to focus on your operation. How do you operationalize this? You begin to focus on your budget. You begin to focus on administrative issues. And anybody who, for those listening, anybody who understands what's happening in a local organization as well as in a national organization, you can bear with me that most of your efforts are going into this operational stuff, this administrative stuff.
Exactly.
And that's where the energy is burnt out. And many people get burnt out in that process. But boy, the opportunity is actually outside that process, and maybe with the advent of technology, maybe with the advent of all of these things, that if we keep focusing on why we exist, what is the purpose of us coming together, and what is it that we do, rather than the why is really important. Most of the time, it's not that the mission is not relevant. It's always relevant. Across the world, people have said people come, but they don't stay. Our challenge, therefore, becomes how do we operationalize this? How do we make the organization designed in such a way that it is easier to integrate, easier to get involved? And I'm going to say something now that will really be off what members expect. We have defined membership in one way, but maybe the future doesn't have to be that way. Maybe the future we're not going to have members who are going to come and spend 3 years, or like me and Lars who have been here forever. No, because we know that people will come for short purposes. So they'll come for short periods. They'll come for an event. They would come for a project. They would come for a skills development program, a forum, and all of that. They may not spend those 3 years. So we need to start figuring out, how do we keep people engaged based on what they need? And so understanding the data of people who join the organization, when they join the organization, why they join the organization, and being able to explain to people on joining the organization why the organization exists, what role they can play in the organization, and even thinking about the organization in the larger society. So you cannot think about JCI, your local organization, in the context of your local organization. Because if you only talk to 20 people, you're going to shrink with 20 people. But maybe you start thinking about it as, are these 20 people, how could they be relevant to young people in the larger society? How could we be relevant to the community in which we function? And when I say community, I don't necessarily mean the city, but the community could be defined. So I'm talking about several things here: redefining membership, even redefining your community within the context of a country. Are we supposed to be limited only to a national organization? Can we have people who are part of our organization who are even beyond borders? That is where this is moving to. And I think that it would lift up the burden on our young people who struggle passionately to keep people within the organization, to start thinking differently about how we engage young people.
I find it really exciting that you're actually saying that we're kind of screwing it up ourselves by running an organization instead of engaging people, and I totally agree with you. As you and I know, we've discussed before, I always say that the best thing we could do was actually to kill the national organization and just let the local organizations run themselves, because most national organizations kind of screw up things instead of actually empowering the local organizations. But Catherine is asking, does that mean that we should become an event-based or training organization and not focused on projects anymore? Is what Catherine is asking.
Yeah, hi, Catherine. Actually, it is the opposite, because if you want to be sustainable, and you just focus on an event-based, you would draw people to the event, but how do you activate them? So anybody can become an events organizer nowadays, because you have all the platform and you have all the tools that are available. And here's really where you would stand out differently, is that the only reason you should organize events should be a touch point. So this is where you engage people. And the end of the event should always have an outcome. So what is your call to action? Why did you bring people together? The reason you bring people together is because you want to do something more with them. And that's where activation comes in. All right. So the activation is being able to demonstrate to people from one event that there are next steps that they can take to continue to improve themselves, because that's why we exist, is empowerment, right? We're giving you, through this event, an opportunity. And this opportunity, you can be empowered to do a lot more things. And so at any event that you organize, it should be geared towards action. And this is where projects come in, which is sequential to the event. And that event could be your local organization meeting, it could be a skills development program or training program, it could be just a motivational session. You could bring out laughs to just fire people up, but with the purpose of, I want to keep this group of people engaged. So that next step is, what is the activity that comes after that? What is the project? Now, in the context of how do you become relevant in the community or the sphere in which you are in, that's where projects come in. And I usually say projects in the sense that I don't necessarily mean that you, Catherine, should be out in the streets cleaning on the streets. No, that's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you should be, Catherine, the person who thinks about how we fix this. Your job is, how do I mobilize 100 volunteers who do not have to be JCI members? How do I mobilize my city? How do I, in that process, Catherine, this is what we are made of, is that in that process of trying to think big, of trying to think about the solution, you are actually transforming yourself without knowing it. And that's really the key, is activating people to do things that they never imagined that they will be able to do, right? And then demonstrating results beyond just your 20, 25 members in your local organization, where it now becomes the local radio station talking about the work that you have done. And that's how you build, again, I said, studying the 100 best organizations in the world, this trend continues to flow through. It's really activating people, moving them from just sitting in the classroom to actually taking action and getting results.
Exactly. We don't want people to join our organization. We want them to be part of our organization and really being active with whatever they do there. I'm glad that Sarah is having an internal discussion with Carl from Norway as well about killing the national organization in JCI Norway. Let's have that as an experiment. Carl, don't worry, you're still the president a year out, or maybe there shouldn't be another one. I don't know that, but that could be kind of exciting. Arrey, when we're looking at the organization as such, and especially when we're looking at young people and engaging them, and you know, we're doing this webinar to kind of join people with the interest of growing the organization worldwide. What are the main advice that you will give if we are looking at, if you were a local president, if you were Arrey, 25 years old, maybe in St. Louis or Chesterfield, and just wanting to do a great job as a local president. No meta talk, no world talk, just Chesterfield, St. Louis. What would you do? What would kind of be the main thing that you would focus on as a local president to be relevant in that city and to engage young people?
Yeah. A few years ago, we developed something called the impact strategy. This is really important. And the impact strategy has really 5 key steps. And I say this because I went on the road around the state of Missouri. 9 new local organizations created within a period of 18 months. And idea was for me to immerse myself and to experience what it really means to go into a city where there is no organization and try to create one using this idea. Where first, I'm a young person in a city where there is no organization. The first thing I need to do is understand why is there a need for young people to have an organization. And what we did was go knock on the doors of the right people, stakeholders in the community. So as a young person, I think you have to start by understanding what is the need. Why should we have an organization of young people? So I would go to the Chamber of Commerce, for example. I would go to the City Hall. I would talk to business leaders in my community. And I would say, look, I have the intention of creating an organization of young people with a goal of empowering these young people to create change in this community, bring positive change in this community. I understand that these young people do not have the skills now, but through coming together and working together, we're going to build the skills of these young people. They are going to become the future leaders. They are going to become the future CEO of your company. They're going to become the future mayor of your city. They're going to become the future community leader. So that's our goal. And what I would do is identify, the next step would be ask for recommendations of 5 people. I always say those 5 people you're looking for should be 5 people that are better than you. That when I went into the cities and met a young community leader, I always said, I want you to come back with 5 people that you look up to, that are your role models, that you think that, and then you bring them and you discuss this idea of let us create a cream of young people that are outstanding, that act differently and that do things differently. And that should continue being the driving force. And then this group of 5 people go out and look for 5 other people to join them, all with a purpose, not thinking about where they are today, but where they want to be in the future, what role they want to play in the community. And they develop their own concept of what the needs are. So we 25 young people in this community see this as one thing that we want to change. And then they develop their organization based around what that need is in the short term. And eventually that organization is going to grow around that need. So it is relevant to the community. It is empowering. This is really key, that these young people, these 25 people are empowered to do really big things for themselves as well as their community. If that becomes the focus, I guarantee you that 1 year, 2 years down the road, those group of people act and think very differently from other young people in the community. They become admired, they become the attraction, and people want to join them. Now, you have to, at the very beginning, really make people become stakeholders of the organization. That means they shouldn't just come. I always say that if you have a piece of cake and everybody came to take away from the piece of cake, then what will be left? You have to, on the onset, decide that you want to build an organization rather than you just want to participate in something. Because if everybody takes, then nothing will be left for continuity. So you have to constantly evolve based on changing trends, changing needs, and changing expectations of the young people. So it's 5 steps. These 5 steps that I mentioned. 1, identify the need, identify stakeholders, create an opportunity through what an activity or project is. 3, develop an organization around that idea. And finally, celebrate success.
That is great. Well, it is 2 minutes to 10, and it's time for Arrey to get some sleep soon for his very busy days at the JCI ASPAC conference in Kagoshima. I know that your view is absolutely spectacular over the Sakurashima volcano. I don't know if they had it erupt for you just because you came today. I had that once in Kagoshima, and as you know, it's a beautiful city with a lot of opportunities, and for 6,000 young people to join there for the conference of the Asia Pacific area will be absolutely amazing for not only you and those attending, but they will also take some trends home to their national organizations that can really and local organizations that can really make a difference. And Arrey, I want to thank you for being here tonight. I want to thank you for sharing your message. I hope that we can engage with you some other time as well for more stories, for not only war stories from your JCI career, but also catching up on new trends and new ideas. So please help us watch out for things that can make us grow to greatness. So thank you very much, Arrey. Thank you very much for everyone here. I will make a cutted version of this webinar tonight, and it will be available on YouTube as some of the others. I would just say, if you look at the catalog on the JCI Grow to Greatness, we've had some wonderful stories about how to handle conflicts, how to grow with the framework of what the JCI Syria did. We've had JCI past President Dawn telling about her stories about what she thinks could help grow and motivate young people around the world. So stay tuned for the coming events. We hope that if not next month, then maybe in July, we'll have our president joining us as well. So stay tuned, and thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night, and go out there and make a huge difference to grow our organization to greatness again. Thank you very much, Arrey.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Lance, and thanks to everybody.
Thank you.